Hello, Bill. Dr. Bergman. So nice to see you there.
Well, nice to see you too, Sherry. I'm really, really happy to be able to share some information that I think will be of great value to the folks that are going to be watching this. And thank you for the opportunity. And it's great to kind of do this with you.
It is great. Bill and I go back a while when you lived in Colorado full time. And I always learn so much from you. You have just a plethora of information and good ways of being healthy. I've taken a lot of products along the way that you've recommended. It helped a lot of people with your work. And now that you have something to offer that's online, you can cover the whole, not only the whole nation, but the whole world, which is really exciting, so that you can share your goodness, your knowledge.
Thank you, Sherry.
So instead of me trying to give a biographical background for you, could you do that for us and tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, sure. You know, I originally went to the medical school at Columbia University to train as an eye surgeon. They have a great eye institute at the Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center, where I graduated in 1970, almost just about 50 years ago. And but during my time in medical school, during the third year, when we left the classrooms and actually went into the wards of the hospital, I had the good fortune of having a medical preceptor who was a kind of older professor of medicine. He was a specialist in rheumatoid arthritis. He was doing a significant research on autoimmune illness. And he sat our little group of 8 medical students down one afternoon, and this was after days of him taking us around to see patients and going over the physical exam and the laboratory and all of that. And he sat us down and he said, never forget that this illness is psychosomatic. And I absolutely was stunned because, you know, to me, psychosomatic at that point was sort of, well, what is he saying? That the patients are imagining that they have rheumatoid arthritis? But he went on to explain that psycho means mind, somatic means body, and there was a mind-body connection. And this was 1968, and it just created a whole new path for me in terms of a career. And so I started researching what in those days we referred to as holistic medicine. Now we call it integrative or functional medicine, but because, of course, the science is really showing that everything needs to be really kind of integrated. But back then, I began researching a lot of different modalities of natural medicine and made a career in holistic and preventive medicine, trying to get to the root causes of chronic disease. And that's how that began for me.
Wonderful. What a great way to start out in the 60s. You were definitely a pioneer before most of us had even thought about the word alternative or holistic or integrative. That's great to hear that you've been at this for a while.
Yes, I certainly have. But, you know, I have to say, I just really wanted to understand why people get sick. I mean, you know, we have a body created by God, I believe, which is just an absolute marvel. I mean, it's a miracle. Every single part of the human body is just absolutely amazing, and just speaks to us of a creative intelligence behind everything that's been created. And how is it that body gets sick with chronic disease? I just really wanted to understand that, and that's what kind of led me to holistic medicine. And then from there, over the years, really decades, I began to understand, came to really believe that stress was the most significant factor in terms of the cause of chronic disease. Not that nutrition and our food choices, or, you know, the environment, the exposure to toxins isn't important. They're vitally important in terms of the cause of chronic disease. But we live with our mindset. We live with our experience of life. And if we're under continual stress, I believe this is the most important factor in terms of being able to understand the cause and therefore help people to prevent or to otherwise reverse chronic disease. We have to really understand how stress is created and what we can do about it. And that's led to some very exciting things, I have to say, over these years.
So with all this experience in working with individuals, I'm assuming one-on-one in your practice, and then working, I think the first time I met you was at an athletic club in Denver when you were giving a talk to a whole group of people. It sounds like now you're at a place where you really understand the stress, and because in the past I know you focused a lot on nutrition. You got that piece down, but now you're saying that the stress is causing so much of the problem. How do you work with people today with all the stress that we're bombarded with?
Right. Well, it's certainly one-on-one with people, doing private one-on-one consultations with people, which thanks to the technology we're able to do anywhere that there's an internet connection. We can really kind of, meet with people one-on-one and have a private session. And but I also do a lot of group work because the group is itself a dynamic for healing. If the group's intention is to improve health and well-being and be open-minded to new ideas, then that itself creates a kind of spiritual environment for healing to take place. So I work with people in small groups. I also work with people one-on-one. And it's not really treatment. I mean, it's no longer a matter of holistic medical treatment or integrative medical treatment. It's really an educational process. What I've come to understand is that stress is self-created. That's a very, very fundamental point that I think we have to really understand, that stress is self-generated. We create our stress, and it's just wonderful to be able to share with people the understanding about that and then what they can do about it. So it's an educational kind of modality more than a treatment modality.
You always have been years ahead of the rest. And so I'm thrilled to hear you say this. Both the idea of the collective, because the collective consciousness, and you said the group intention to me, same. Collective is going to hold that energy, but the idea that we can't project out onto somebody else that they're causing us our stress anymore. We have to take responsibility for it. What a concept.
Well, that's exactly it. You've hit the nail on the head, and that's why it isn't necessarily the most popular point of view. It's a matter of really understanding that most of us have been taught and more or less indoctrinated in a concept. It's not a conspiracy. It's just the way, as you say, the mass consciousness has believed about stress, that it's a product of our circumstances. That we have a stressful job, we have a coworker who's causing us stress at work, that we have situations at home with our significant others, or with our children, or even our health, that, health challenges. These are the things, the circumstances of our life that are causing our stress. And unfortunately, if we think that way, and most of us do think that way, and we've been taught to think that way, we end up being the victims of our circumstances. We have to just kind of either change the circumstances or leave the situation, get a different partner, or get a different work situation, or whatever it is. We have to change these circumstances because we mistakenly believe that it's the circumstances which are causing our stress. And turns out that it's not really true. we have a nervous system. God gave us a nervous system that is not able to experience the circumstances of our life directly. It always has to be filtered through our own consciousness, through our own beliefs. And as a consequence of that, we always have our view of what's happening and react to our view of what's happening, and that creates our experience. And that's why two people can have the same exact circumstances and yet react and experience it completely differently.
Right.
Because it's a matter of what's going on within us in relationship to the outside circumstances that makes all the difference in terms of how we feel about it, of what we're actually experiencing.
So the perspective is ours to decide how we determine what's happening. Do you talk to people about then being more aware? Is that a part of your program of what they're creating and how they're creating it and how they can choose to have a different perspective?
Yeah, the approach that I take with people, well, first of all, my focus right now has been pretty much on habits, destructive habits and addictions. But that's a subset of the broader issue of stress in general. But it really turns out that the key is having insight about how the human mind functions, of how our thoughts determine our experience, and how we can understand about the way that this process occurs, and therefore gain tremendous freedom to be able to find peace of mind, to experience a higher quality of life, better performance, better relationships, more joy and happiness in our life, no matter what the circumstances. Now, of course, some circumstances are very provocative, meaning, bad things do happen, but our unique experience of that is largely within our own creative ability. And this is where kind of reframing comes in, and, techniques of mindfulness and all, where we try to kind of change our thinking about what's happening to us. And that's all very, very valuable. My particular focus is on destructive habits, where I help educate people to the way that their brain and mind is functioning, so that they feel that they're under the influence of a powerful urge to act on a habit, rather than understanding the power that they have personally to be able to have more choice in what is actually going on, and therefore not have to act on the urge. And that's a very, very big subject, but fortunately, with greater and greater insight, people are able to really get a handle on that and be able to really see the urges of destructive habits actually weaken.
This is probably one of the most powerful ideas in our society today, that we do have that control, and to learn how to stop and take the reins. Everything from, this is just such an addictive society, from alcohol to drugs to sugar to what we're eating and how we believe we have to have it and how it makes us feel. But to look at it a little differently and to stop when you think, no, I've got to have it now. Boy, I can't think of a better service to society. I don't know anybody that doesn't have some addiction. It might even be too much coffee, right?
Well, that's true. Virtually all of us have patterns of behavior that are not necessarily serving us. Now, sometimes they're very, very destructive and very serious, like a serious drug or alcohol addiction, for example. But at the other end of the spectrum, we can be just affected by a kind of habit of thinking in a certain way. Maybe we have a an addiction to a thought system where we're just constantly feeling a lack of contentedness, or where we're in a kind of thought system where we're constantly in grievance, where, we feel like, we're holding on to a burden of personal grievance towards someone that may have hurt us. Now, maybe that person truly did hurt us very deeply, but we can form a pattern and an addictive thought mindset, really, which imprisons us. So even though we're upset with the person, we end up being the one who's really in prison as a result of not being able to overcome that grievance mindset, which, of course, this is where we open up to the whole idea of forgiveness, which is another topic that really has a lot to do with relieving stress, is to be able to overcome resentment and grievance, also discontentedness. The antidote for that is gratitude. I mean, these are forms of addiction which I think affect many of us, whether we have a more overt, addiction to, let's say, gambling or smoking or something of that nature. But in my work with people, I don't focus on a specific addiction as much as, or habit of thinking, as much as the way that the mind and the brain function. So it applies to everyone. It's a universal understanding of simply the way that the mind works and the way that we form habits, and then as a result we get urges which become established in the circuitry of the brain. And the good news is that can be reversed with kind of understanding and insight. That actually is all we need to begin to shift towards a healing of the brain and a rewiring of the brain, is the way we can think about it in terms of neurology and biology.
Well, I'd like to see you training and teaching this every day. Instead of the nightly news, I'd like to see your program. We could all listen to it for a half hour a day, every day of the week, until we finally rewire our brains and get it and be able to be a little more functional and whole. Because you're the one person that I know that you have the medical background, and you also have the spiritual background, and you've been able to so beautifully weave them together for some real solutions to these huge problems that we have in our world today. We're being faced with. Do you have a way to get this out to people other than the nightly news?
Well, if people are interested in what we've been talking about here and they'd like more information, I actually have a free special report that they can access by just going to a website, www.enddestructivehabits.com. No spaces, just enddestructivehabits.com. And then they can get a free report which really goes into what we've been talking about in greater depth. And that also introduces people to an online program which includes time with me to a private consultation. So it's recorded videos as well as text and PowerPoints and then time with me, depending on the level of the program that the person might be interested in. So I would suggest people just going to enddestructivehabits.com and taking a look at the free report.
And from there, is there a more comprehensive program that you're offering?
Right. From the free report, if people want to really access the process of being able to end habits and addictions, that program will be introduced through the special report. They can take a look at that by just going to enddestructivehabits.info. That's the actual program. So the report is .com and the actual program is .info.
Right. What I'll do is
destructivehabits.com or .info.
I'll put it on the bottom of this video. So
Oh, thank you, Sherry.
for a while and maybe copy it down and get there. Sometimes people hear it and they get it a little better. Sometimes we have to see it and hear it. But yeah, I think this is like crucial. I wish you were working with our whole educational system, political system, nonprofit. I mean, it's just endless. Who is not addicted to something? We're all addicted to the concepts, like you say, even if it's not a physical substance. So pertinent today, so important. I hope that everybody can access this, go in and take a look at it, consider it for themselves, because it's so needed. Over the years, you've developed a lot of programs. You've helped thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. So it's great that you can be available now on an international setting instead of just in your hometown. Yay.
Well, and I'm very grateful to you for just creating the platform through this video, which, of course, it takes a team. It takes partnerships and teamwork. We can't really do this alone. We have to just and that's, of course, what God really is hoping for, that we can all work together to make the world a better place, obviously.
There you go. That's what we're on to. I think we may do a longer one, but this is a good for introduction so that people can get a sense of who you are, what you've got to offer, and where to go to find it. So thank you so much, Dr.
Oh,
thank
you so much, Sherry. Wonderful working with you and just being in contact with you. Absolutely. Really, really grateful.
Okay, well, you take good care.
Okay, you too. Have a wonderful Sunday.
Thank you. You also.